Life is so busy, if you blink, you can miss something amazing. It's important to take a moment and enjoy what we have and the people around us. I'm Mo Hagan, Chief Operating Officer for CanFit Pro, and welcome to A Moment with Mo, a podcast where I will welcome some incredible guests to talk fitness and nutrition, mindset and self-improvement, setting your goals into action, and much, much more. Now let's get chatting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second podcast in my series, A Moment with Mo. And I'm Mo, and I'm thrilled to be here in this month of February. It is National Heart Month, and I thought it'd be amazing to talk about an aspect of heart health, which is our mindset and our emotions. I did share with you, both in my blogs and in my very first podcast, that joy is my word for this year. It's on my vision board. It is what I think about and meditate around every morning. And did you know that practicing positivity and optimism is as important as exercise for reducing the risk of heart disease, heart attack, stroke, and even early mortality? So that is why I love to exercise this time to talk about joy as an emotion. And we're going to dive into 3 pillars of our life where we can focus on building joy. Now, my guest today is someone that is a dear friend in the fitness industry and in my life. She is best known in the fitness industry as the joie de vie giver. And this is Nathalie Lacombe. So I'd like to welcome you, Nathalie. Hello.
Bonjour, everyone. Hello, Mo. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great. When I thought of a let's chat about joy and positivity and mindset and how to build that in so it becomes as important as exercise, I couldn't think of a better person. So thanks for saying yes.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for asking.
So I'd love to introduce you, give you just a bit of background on Nathalie for those who haven't had an opportunity to work with this amazing human and or be on her podcast in bed with the fitness industry. We'll talk about that as well. But Nathalie Lacombe, she integrates 25 years of experience within the fitness industry combined with her degrees in psychology and exercise science. She has blended that in with the work that she does, and that is in many areas of the fitness industry. I've had the opportunity of working with Nathalie at CanFit Pro for a decade, just over a decade. Nathalie was in the role of Vice President of Operations. In fact, moved up the ranks, directing certification at CanFit Pro. And it was such a pleasure, and in part due to Nathalie's philosophy around joy in the workplace. Nathalie is also Vice President at the FIC, or Fitness Industry Council of Canada. And Nathalie is an award-winning member of CanFit Pro's advisory panel. So Nathalie, thanks again. And let's dive in, or as they'd like to say at this time of the year, let's talk.
Let's talk indeed. Yes, great idea.
And we promise you that we could talk for hours, but we'll keep it to just around 25, 30 minutes. But I'd love to break this conversation into 3 parts. The first part is for those like even myself. I mean, I honestly had to research a little bit about joy. I knew it was an emotion, but I really didn't understand what it truly meant, how it's different from happiness, perhaps, and where it ranks in emotions. One reason I chose joy as my word this year is because I have to confess and say, especially over the last number of years, and also being a recovering perfectionist, that I sometimes lose my joy in all the change and chaos and challenges of work and life. And I'd love to hone that for myself, for my personal well-being, for my relationships, and for my work or my contribution to the world. So those are the 3 pillars that I talk about in my blog. I'd love to start by inviting you to define joy, share some of the psychology around it, and perhaps that'll lead us into the next part, which is strategies and steps to build joy.
Thank you. Um, it's interesting. I mean, when you first brought this up with me, and I do say joie de vivre giver, or I put that in my bio, I should say, because it feels like it's what I carry around with me, and that felt really innate. And I feel like when it comes to joy and happiness and positivity, and the way our outlook on life, separating what you were raised with, separating what was nature versus nurture, is a piece that I ask myself about a lot. And this is one of those, it was the opportunity that I had discussing this with you, because it feels like for me, a lot of the times it's just natural. The last few years have given me the opportunity to dig into it a little bit more and look into it a little bit more and define it more, because I find when something's pulled from us, taken away from us, when we feel ourselves shift to a place that we are not the best of ourselves, then it's easier, more accessible perhaps, to reflect on what's missing and what can come there. So happiness being a state in which a lot of things come together in order for us to be happy. And a lot of that has to do with work-life balance. A lot of that has to do with the relationships that we're in. A lot of that has to do with a bit more of a high level type of evaluation of it. Joy can be immediate. It can flip really quickly. You can access it really quickly. And it can be moments of the day. So if you think about it from this perspective of an opportunity for you to find joy in a moment, find joy in a person, find joy, whether it's in the stressful, the mundane, the easier, the not easier, it's something we can seek, which means it has direction, which means it has a roadmap, if you will. And the roadmap of that, and this is one of the places where I'll tie it into optimism, because that's another word that you brought in. Some people will qualify themselves as being optimistic or pessimistic. One of the pieces of optimism is being present moment. And so if joy is found in moments, then the only way to access joy is to be in the darn moment. If you're outside of it, if you wish you were doing something else, and then if you're pulling the experience to someplace else, then obviously it's really inaccessible in that way. But bringing yourself to the present moment is the first one, because all we really have is that, right? When we look back, sometimes it's easier to find our mood being pulled down. When we look forward, we can feel our anxiety being pulled up. But right now is all we can have. That sense of control you talked about before, all we have is right now. And so being in the moment is the place that we have joy. And the second piece, and this is something that I've learned and I've played around with a lot, is people think that they access optimism or not, they are optimistic or not, but optimism is actually a skill. Optimism is an outlook that can be, like I said, road mapped. And the first piece of it is curiosity.
Mm.
Curiosity is the gateway, the opening door towards that. So that sense of wonder. So you might have noticed when people aren't optimistic, they're usually like, they're jumping to conclusions, they're closed-minded, they're like, here we go again, this is going to happen again. Versus if you look at kids going into an experience, it's that sense of wonder, that I wonder what's going to happen, as opposed to I know this is what's going to happen. And so you need to be present moment. You need to feel safe. You need to be comfortable with risk. And it's about what can be there, letting go of that sense of control, like you talked about earlier. So those are the two places I would
Oh,
say to
wow.
define joy, really in the present moment and bringing curiosity to that present moment, which allows you to find joy. Because if you're in a space without curiosity, even if joy's there, it's really hard for you to connect with it.
Beautiful. And that's going to come in handy for when we ask some questions at the end, which I invite those that read my blog to reflect on, and how to cultivate joy in areas of their life, whether it be in their own well-being, being in the moment, and just harnessing that joy, even if it's for a moment, and then recognizing, because I'm certain that too, as you enjoy more of the moments, you'll seek more of those moments, therefore practice being more curious, present, etc. And then, of course, the same goes for how we can harness and build joy in our relationships and in our work. So thank you for sharing that. It also really would help people get move beyond, or as you said, move towards the the fear, because everyone experiences fear, but it's moving through it with that curiosity and enjoying the moment, not just, oh, okay, when this is over, then I'll be happy or I'll accomplish something, but being in the moment. I can almost see how that in itself will help me in some of those parts of my work that I sometimes lose track of the fact that I actually love what I do, but it doesn't feel like it in the moment. But now I
Mm,
can harness it differently. Love it. I
mm,
also love you have this philosophy, and this
mm,
is an exercise. So let's jump into strategies and steps. I will share a few myself. I've
mm,
shared them with my followers, but I'd love you to share. And this was something that when I learned this from you at CanFit Pro, and I've watched you in action over the last, I don't know how many years we've known each other. It it really did come together when you shared with me your less and more, where
mm,
you can flip again your mindset. And it's difficult to perhaps do as a habit, but as you do it, you can shape it to be. Can you talk a
mm.
little bit about that philosophy or strategy around using your less and more?
Yeah, it's interesting, because you talked about how you saw the joy and the positivity and things like that in the workplace. And I feel like, and maybe it's for women, it's even tougher, but I feel like in the executive world, um, having a leadership philosophy based around positivity can feel to fearful. We can worry that we're not going to be taken seriously. Au contraire, I take my positivity really seriously. It's something that is not a just be positive and I just want everybody to be positive, but I work on it as ingrained as it is to me at a cellular level, I believe. It is also, to your point, something I'm constantly working towards. I take it really seriously. It's not clowning around. It's legitimately a style of leadership to me. And when I say leadership, I don't, so yes, I'm talking about, in the workplace at an executive level, but in my relationships, in my work, in everything that I do, whether it be professional or personal, it's something that I work for. And so to do that, thinking about what you want less and what you want more helps us as human beings because we really either move towards something or away from
Oh,
something. That's how we solicit change. That's we're complicated human beings, but that's the simplicity of the psychology of it
mhm.
is less assumptions and jumping to conclusions, like I talked about before, more curiosity and seeking to understand. And the seeking to understand is one that I learned from you. I heard from you most of my career, most of my leadership career. And that's where because you can't seek to understand unless you're being curious.
Mm,
If you don't bring curiosity, it's really hard to say I'm going to seek to understand, but are you actually actively listening in those
mm,
places? So another piece of that, less cynicism, negativity, more optimism and trust. And again, you can't get to trust without a little bit of curiosity, like wondering, where is this coming from? Probably assuming it has nothing to do with me if there's something that's troubling somebody else, being curious about what's happening in their lives, what's happening from them, that this is how they need to act, react, to be right now, and not assuming that it's something that has to do with me and a poor relationship we have. So
mm,
less gossiping and
mm,
broken trust,
mm,
more candidly speaking to the right person, creating spaces for safety. We need safe spaces, especially, considering everything's opening up on social media. We need safe spaces. And if you can provide that safety for somebody, then you will probably get closer to a more positive relationship with them. Less judgment, more empathy,
mm.
more
Big one.
empathy. Again, curiosity, caring, empathy, safety, trust. It's all those kinds of things.
Hmm.
Less opinion, more reflecting. I will remind your listeners that animals react, that if what separates us from the animal kingdom is when something happens, we can respond as opposed to react. And I mean, you won't see this on Twitter often, but I promise you, we can respond as opposed to react. And the difference between the two is time and space and reflection. That's the difference. And sometimes we are very reactive. Sometimes we can work on our opportunity to do more of that reflection and responding. and less worrying about the past, more being solutions focused. But that's where these things come through. And this is this is the philosophy of it. There's day-to-day actions that I know you and I are going to talk about that can help people with that, because saying this is one thing, but applying that into our daily lives is the piece. But that's what it is. More curiosity, optimism, trust, reflection, candidly speaking, creating safety. Honing that is how I take my positivity really seriously and continually work on it.
Fantastic. And one thing I commend you for is the courage to take to the executive boardrooms and those executives you work with in the industries that you are involved in, is actually redefining that emotional piece and what you've just talked about in terms of mindset, optimism, joy, as a essential skill, which was once upon a time seen as a soft skill, which, as we have learned, women in the boardroom tended in the past to lead with those strong skills of soft skills, which were not taken seriously because they weren't hard skills, like learning bottom lines and data and, whatever, financials. But it's the essential skills today, especially in the diverse workspaces we work in, and with the effort to create more safety and trust in the workplace, and also inclusivity. So I commend you for that, because you've really helped, especially the fitness industry that I know of. I've watched you in front of hundreds of club owners and operators, and how you've commanded the attention required. They want to learn from you with this important work. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
please continue, because it's needed more than ever, especially as we are now navigating ourselves back into the workspace. It's all about rebuilding trust and learning how to communicate and work together differently, and bringing joy and optimism into the workplace, because it's also a tough place these days. So thank you for that. So for the viewers and listeners, that it's almost like a mind, I call it a boomerang, taking what you naturally do, checking in or reflecting with yourself. Is this how you want to show up? Maybe pessimistic or judgmental, or that cynicism or gossip. And how do you want to, as a boomerang, for those who know it, you throw it out there, it comes back to you. So how do you want to move that and bring it back to you in a way that's going to be most effective in how you want to be as a leader? So take that contrast list, less of this and more of that. It is an exercise you can practice, just like training and exercise in the gym. So that would be one practical exercise. I'd love to share what I'm using for, building on my joy muscle this year. And that is getting back to regular meditation. And I may not be your book, like as far as by the rules meditator, but when I meditate over what it is and how I wish to show up at work, and be more curious, practice active listening, be happier in the moment, harnessing those joyful moments. You know what? When I meditate around that in the morning, or prior to a meeting, or prior to a presentation, then I bring more of it. So that would be one practical exercise where I would reflect and say, in a moment, for my own personal well-being, what is it that brings me joy? When I exercise and move my body, when I learn to meditate, when I journal, when I those are things I do to build my personal well-being joy. And what do you do, Nathalie? I know a bit, but tell the viewers what you do to harness joy in your personal well-being, and don't hesitate to share if personal well-being involves some of your hobbies, such as cooking.
How did you know we'd land there? Here's what I'll share firstly is, because we're at the beginning of 2023, I made a decision in 2023 that I've been burning myself out by giving away so much fitness and wellness to others that there was nothing left for me. And I don't want to get burned, which is one of the reasons I've been doing silly things like trying to go to hot yoga, because I don't normally don't do well with heat. And so I'm trying to do things to put myself in positions where I'm capable of creating the barriers around it and protect myself,
Mm.
so that I don't get burned in those situations. And so it has a lot to do with that. Here's the practical way I do that, and it's an analogy that's been used by sports psychologists, but really started with Martin Luther King. Is I ask myself, am I feeling like a thermometer or a thermostat? The thermometer responds to what's happening around them. So if there's stress around you, you're like, you're up. If it's heat, you're up. If it's cool, you're down. And that's what I mean by like being burned, as I get pulled into that thermometer type of state. Versus a thermostat regulates what's happening around it. And I know when I'm going towards thermometer. And I think the self-awareness, I guess, would be that's how I do it, is we need to exercise that self-awareness and then create the boundaries around it. So for me, I go from being a happy, joyful person to being irritable, if not impatient, if not intolerant. And then I know I'm not myself anymore. My sleep is a hot mess. My nutrition is not what nourishes me. Everything starts to fall off there. And
Mm.
so I need these routines, and routine is so key. We forget as adults that we need them. What are my routines for me? Focusing on sleep first and foremost. And so sleep hygiene, I'm passionate about sleep hygiene. Couple of good nights and everything changes. Doesn't take a lot. Couple of good nights and everything changes. So putting in the things with sleep hygiene, cooking for others, because the secret ingredient to that is always love. Otherwise, it doesn't taste good. So it pulls me back into giving love to myself and feeding others, but while I'm feeding myself versus just making it for other people. So that giving it away piece. And then finding movement that is joyful, which could be something super fun, dancing in high intensity, could be a restorative yoga, could be whatever I need there, but I know that movement will bring me there. So the self-awareness of what a thermometer starts to look like, and then what brings Nathalie back to thermostat, and in priority doing those things: sleeping, cooking, movement. That would
Wow.
be my technique.
What a great analogy, the thermostat to the thermometer, and being in check with that and what brings you back, and
Mm.
the self-awareness piece, the yeah, wow. That's like if my mic was up, I'd drop it because that's a mic drop moment.
Bless you. Thank you.
I love that. And thank you. I mean, I can't, I'm going to leave it at that because that is perfect for all of us to focus on and take with us, or find a analogy that works for you. I'll share
Mm.
a really simple exercise that I used to share with as a practicing physiotherapist, with my patients, to remind them about powering up their posture, because they would be typically people who had chronic back pain. And I honestly feel I learned this from a patient, because as I grew up, I remember my mother saying, "Don't slouch, Mo. Don't, when you slouch, you look cranky, you look sad, you look weak. Stand up tall." Like, remember, we always got reminded what not to
Mhm,
do. And
mhm,
so this patient said, "I took your power up your posture." And she went home, put it on post-it notes, and put a smiley face, because it reminded her when she stood tall, sat tall, practiced lengthening her spine, she actually felt happier because she had
mm,
less pain. So I've used that exercise for many things, but I do say that as I'm learning to be in the moment and be more joyful in those moments,
mm,
I have put post-it notes in those critical places around my house where I will make better decisions knowing that I'm happier in that moment, such as a
mm,
smiley face posted on the refrigerator. Because I think when we're not feeling our best, we tend to not eat the best. I have a post it note in my office on my computer screen. I have a post it note on my steering wheel. I have a post it note with a smiley face in my bathroom mirror around the house, where it just allows me to check in not only with my smile, but also with my posture. And of course, anyone who has met someone that has a smile and stands strong actually illuminates
mm,
positivity, strength, happiness, perhaps joy. So that's another simple exercise. And there
mm,
are many you can do.
mhm,
Let me take us to another exercise, and I'm going to jump into my reflection questions in my blog. And Natalie's unaware that I'm going to ask her this, unless she saw my blog. I actually invite people to reflect on a moment with personal well-being where they feel the most joy. And you've already shared that. So I encourage you all to reflect on that. But let's jump into relationships. You did hint at something, but Natalie, can you think of a relationship or many in which that relationship is most joyful and positive? And then could you share with us why that is? And the reason I'm asking you this is perhaps we can take what we know from those strong relationships where we have most joy, and we can then bring what that is into the relationships that we're working on building more joy in, and share that practice or philosophy. Can you share with us for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, and I just so Mo know this. When I did leave Canfit Pro was to be closer to family, and one of those people was my mom. And I actually spent the day with my mom today, going around and running a bunch of errands. And the opportunity, so we were running a bunch of errands, but in the middle of it, I'm like, let's go have a coffee, let's go have a snack somewhere, and we sit down. And when people feel like you're listening intently with compassion, just listening, not trying to, um, not even trying to connect, not trying to one up, not trying to relate, but just really listening to the person. And then if they do want something from you, advice, an opportunity, or a response, then being able to do that is there. But absolutely having mama who's, um, I can't believe how lucky I am to have my mom still around, who's, turning 80, and a symbol of health, and being in that space and being able to spend time with her. We FaceTime pretty much every day when she's in Florida. I was able to see her every day during the pandemic, even during that time, because we were exercising and doing other things, and she joined my classes and all those things. So Simon and I don't have children, and we realize that our generation, the one before us, that's family for us. And so making the most out of every single one of those moments is absolutely a place where I find joy. I'm very
Wow.
lucky to still have that. Yeah.
And I remember that moment, many moments standing on the stage at CanFit Pro where you would be speaking and connecting with your peeps, and right in the front row, Simon and your mom. And I could just, make me emotional. But the connection and just being in that moment, you just pause, you'd look out there and see your mom,
Mm.
and I
Yeah.
could tell that was your sweet spot. So thank you for sharing that. I'm
My
sure
pleasure.
that many of us could harness those moments more, and understanding that it's practicing what you already know as what works, and just transferring it. The third
Mm.
question that I ask in my blog is how to reflect, or take the opportunity to reflect on what brings you most joy in your work. And when I
Mm.
say work, I don't mean your job. Yes, it could be your job, but it could be work as being your contribution to the world, or how you choose to serve your purpose. For me,
Mm.
moving people forward, whether it's in their fitness, health, whether it's in their careers, in their relationships with themselves or others, moving them forward and helping them see that next step. And
Mm.
more importantly, being courageous to take that next step is what brings me joy. So when I
Mm.
get to do that every day, and that's when I have to say, when I go into the day with the intention that I'm going to serve rather than just to get my work done, but to serve others,
Mm.
then we all get, it's like together, everyone achieves more success, teams.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I encourage people to also reflect on where they get to experience the greatest amount of joy. Now, the
Mhm.
work that you get to do today is consulting, running your amazing podcast, in
Mm.
bed with the fitness industry. You consult one on one. You represent the fitness industry with the FIC. You
Mm.
serve CanFit Pro as a advisor. What is one thing that you could share with the viewers that perhaps they don't know, that
Mm.
gives you that joy, that perhaps just elevates your work to the next level?
I'll tell you that there's a lot of pieces. I mean, there's a fitness career coaching client of mine that told me that she took 5 days off. So she and I worked on building her career and her business, and she took 5 days off in January. And I'm like, that's the testimonial I need for the rest of the year. For a fitness professional to be able to take 5 days off in January and not panic about the revenue is wonderful, you know? But the piece that also, all of the stuff that I do with all those people for them to thrive in their careers is great. But I'm astonished, Mo, every time I will teach, and I'm talking virtual classes on Zoom with a bunch of black squares and nobody seeing me, and seeing in the chat blow up with, thank you for being so positive. You're so positive. And I'm astonished every time. And I'm like, please, 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 people in the health and wellness and fitness industry, make people feel good about what their bodies can do versus pull ourselves towards having exercise feel like punishment for the rest of their lives that are out there. And so focusing on the magnificent bodies and minds and spirits that we have, and how movement helps them thrive, how they are happy, how we can enjoy that, I think will have an impact on what we do. Because since you and I have known one another, half of the people who start an exercise program drop out within the first 3 months. And one day I'm going to retire, but not till that changes. And I think a big piece of that is us helping them get that immediate gratification of self-esteem, feeling better about themselves. They're literally getting happy hormones flowing through their bodies. So let's connect with that. So that's what it is. When people say, you know, you're the first person that's ever made me feel good about my body, I'm 68 years old. I'm like, that is what will keep me going until I can't move no more, which I hope is forever. But that's what's going to keep me going, is helping them thrive in what their bodies can do. Celebrate. Movement is a celebration of everything we have, whatever that is. Whatever that is, that's what brings me joy in my career.
Oh, unbelievable. I'd love to close by just encouraging everyone to catch my blog that helps you take a step-by-step journey from well-being through relationships and the worker contribution to the world, infusing joy by just understanding yourself more and perhaps adopting some of these insights and philosophies and practices that Nathalie and I have shared today. I also would love for Nathalie just to take a moment, tell our viewers where they can find you, connect with you, and work with you. And then we'll close with my favorite quote.
Yes, please. Thank you for the opportunity for that. And so you can find me on all the social medias. You can find me on my website, nathalielacombe.com, or probably simplest through Instagram at Nathalie Lacombe Coaching. And what's mine is yours. So I'll be happy to connect in whichever way is simplest and best for everybody out there.
Thank you. Thanks. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, my blog, you can go to mohagan.com. And I thank you. And I want to leave you off with some advice from one of my favorite comedians, also a summer Canadian, as she resides along with her husband in Canada at her favorite cottage. And that is Goldie Hawn. And Goldie shares with us, if we can just let go and trust that things will work out the way that they're supposed to, without trying to control the outcome, then we can begin to enjoy the moment more fully. The joy of the freedom it brings becomes more pleasurable than the experience itself. Enough said.
Love that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Nathalie. Love you. Thank you, everyone. I hope that you found that joyful and helpful for you. And please remember, building your joy muscles is as important as building your heart as a muscle. And when you build the one that is joy, you'll build the other. Let's do that together. All the best. And until next time, be well.